Welcome to this meeting of Babergh District Council. I'm Councillor Deborah Saul, leader of Babergh District Council, and I will be chairing this meeting. May I first remind you all of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use, that you do not interrupt other speakers, that if you're attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off. Additionally, we will be using e-voting for this meeting on the modern.gov app. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you're also consenting to being recorded by the council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you're intending to do so, please could you inform the committee clerk. So, item 1, apologies for absence.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of pecuniary other registrable or non-registrable interest by members. Are there any to declare? No. Item 3, BCA/26/1, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of March 2026. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of these minutes? Councillor McCall.
Yes, Chair. There's a reference to Bramford in one of the sill bids, which should of course be Brantham.
Indeed it should. Thank you for pointing
That
that
can
out.
be corrected. I can't recall the exact paragraph.
I'm sure the clerk will be able to find it. Thank you very much. In that case, could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Helen Davies. A seconder, please. Councillor Smith, thank you very much. The governance officer will now conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There's 8 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Item 4, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 5, questions by councillors.
None received, Chair.
Item 6, matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny or Joint Audit and Standards Committee.
There are no matters referred, Chair.
Okay. Item 7, the forthcoming decisions list. Are there any comments on that, please? No? Okay, thank you. Now, there is going to be a change to the agenda. I will move item 11, BCA/26/5, Annual Climate Report and Annual Update of Greenhouse Gas Report, and item 12, BCA/26/6, Building Safety Regulator BSI Inspection Letter of Outcome, up the agenda to be considered first. So without further ado, item 11, BCA/26/5, Annual Climate Report and Annual Update of Greenhouse Gas Report. We have a multiplicity of officers here today. In fact, I am delighted to see so many officers here, and I'm sure they will be exceptionally helpful to councillors as we go through these reports. I will now invite the Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Biodiversity and Nature Recovery to introduce the report, Councillor Helen Davies, and she will be assisted by Tom Barker, the Chief Operating Officer, Jonathan Ward, the Head of Climate and Nature Recovery, and Sarah Wilding, Climate Change Manager. Councillor Davies.
Thank you. As members will be aware, Babergh District Council declared a climate emergency in 2019 and committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2030. These reports are an important part of that journey, allowing us to track our progress, understand where our emissions come from, and identify where further action is needed. I'm pleased to say that we continue to make decent progress. Our total emissions for this year are 1,687 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent, which represents a 42% reduction from our baseline in 2019. That's a significant achievement and reflects sustained effort across the organisation. However, the report also makes clear that the challenge ahead remains substantial. Over half of our emissions now sit within Scope 3, those indirect emissions associated with services, contractors and supply chains. These are inherently more complex to measure and influence, and they will be critical to address if we are to meet our 2030 target. The data also highlights that a relatively small number of assets account for the majority of our emissions. In particular, our leisure centres and sheltered housing together make up a large proportion of our overall footprint. This helps us focus our efforts, but these are also some of the most complex areas to decarbonise. Encouragingly, we are already seeing the impact of a number of initiatives. These include the expansion of solar energy generation across our estate, the continued rollout of electric vehicle infrastructure, and important steps to embed environmental expectations within our procurement processes. At the same time, the report reminds us that progress is not always linear. Factors such as weather, service demand, and changes in data collection can all influence year-on-year results. What matters is that we continue to move in the right direction and focus on the areas where we can make the greatest difference. Ultimately, achieving net zero will require a whole council effort. Every service area, every contract, and every asset plays a role. Reducing emissions not only supports our environmental commitments, but also delivers financial benefits through reduced energy use. The report provides a clear assessment of where we are today, demonstrating strong progress, but also highlighting the scale of work still to come.
Questions from... I'm sorry, I was slightly disconcerted here. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Smith, thank you. So, are there any questions from members, please? Councillor Derek Davis.
Thank you. A really good report and full of a lot of very useful information. My question, though, it sort of stems really from the inaction or the action, the counterproductive action of other councils in not wanting to continue with net zero. Could you outline, you mentioned about the financial benefits that we get. Could you outline maybe in specific figures or certainly in broad figures what those benefits are to us as a council and to our residents?
For detailed numbers, I think I'll actually pass across to Jonathan Ward for that. You did reference other councils and their maybe changing focus. I think that has yet to play out, and we will have to see what that means for us. But in the interim, we all plan on carrying on as normal.
Thank you for the question. I think, as Councillor Davies has said, that the impact of anything is a little bit early to say, but some of the benefits we've put into the annual climate report for the first time of the joint working across Suffolk. So when we get the scale, things through the Suffolk Climate Change Partnership and the Sustainable Suffolk work, there are projects where we've been able to obtain government funding and work more effectively, things like Warm Homes Suffolk, etc. So there's a variety of those schemes. Some of those schemes have now ended, but there are others that are still in play. Quite often it allows us to have a shared resource that we wouldn't know to have individually, or to effectively reduce the duplication we'd all have to undertake. So whilst there are some of the benefits we've got in terms of how many audits or loans or grants have been given out, there's also those other savings it may have created in allowing us a more efficient process that we won't have documented. But we do value that work across the districts and with the county over the years. It's been a strong partnership.
Certainly.
Yeah, so on that, so I don't profess to be an expert on this, but it's really a case of what tangible benefits can our residents see. It's now 7 years since we you know, in this council took that decision to aim for net zero. And after 7 years, it should be, there should be some benefits that we can actually say to our residents, this is why we're doing this is what we're achieving. And I appreciate your points about some of it is a bit of intangible and some of it is still yet to manifest itself. But, you know, what can we say to our residents, this is why we're doing it and this is how it's working?
So a couple of the examples come to mind, particularly around things like the provision of zero interest loans to help improve people's home energy efficiency, the free home energy assessments to allow people to understand what's the best next step and also connect people to where there are grants. There have been shared communications campaigns, things like the solar switching, the Switch Together schemes to allow people to find a sort of trusted provider and a competitive quote to get works done in the home. We have a number of subgroups that operate together to work with other public sector partners to make sure that we're sharing best practice, but also supporting things like energy planning across the county, coordinating wider work across a whole range of things, as well as homes around things like transport, industry needs, etc. So there's a sort of help with developing policy. There's other initiatives around sustainable schools network. There's been work to support community energy groups, of which we have a number in Babergh. So as well as our own support as a council, there's been a wider set of work which has helped develop those groups through that shared resource. There's been some behaviour change work that started off, and we have a shared sort of communications resource. Perhaps I'll give way to Sarah to outline some of the schemes that she's been involved with through the shared work in Suffolk.
Sorry, I thought I was switched on, but I wasn't. Recently, and you will see from the report, we won some funding for the heat network efficiency scheme, and we worked across Suffolk for that as well. So we had an officer that is based in West Suffolk that's supporting the whole of Suffolk on that. So he supported both Babergh and Mid Suffolk for us to be able to receive that funding. And then we've, also we can reference the sustainable travel. So we have our officer that works across Suffolk as well as within our councils. And, being able to deliver things and look at things like the Sudbury bus station, for example, and the various schemes that central government announced that we can put in for, such as the BSIP funding and so on. So, there are a wide variety of things and schemes that not only we deliver within our own councils, but that we rely on the partnership working.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I think you may have partly answered my question in your answer to Councillor Davis's question, but it's been in the news recently that there have been some decisions made about this building and its utilities. Will that affect Babergh's Scope 2 data?
That's a good question, and I must admit I haven't thought that one through yet. But it's possible that Jonathan may have some thoughts on it.
So, do you mind just repeating the first part of the question again, please?
Yeah, recently we've heard that there are going to be changes to this building and its utility arrangements, electricity bills?
Thank you. So we are speaking to colleagues at the County Council and also with our energy broker provider. So this would apply in the next contract period. So it will be a while before anything occurred, but you're right, as tenants of the building, we would then be within the kind of corporate supply. So we're in discussion of what that might mean. So in terms of the actual greenhouse gas reporting, there's a difference between what we report on electricity that we can claim in our headline reporting, which is effectively the same as everyone else using electricity around the grid, and there's a second line reporting, which is the impact of us buying green tariffs. So at the moment, my understanding is that this would affect the Endeavour House share of our emissions in terms of it not being covered by a green tariff, and we'll confirm what date that would be applicable from, but we are in further discussions at the moment around what can be arranged. We've only had a sort of week or so since the news, and we're still waiting for sort of decisions, etc., to come through. So, but we can keep people updated as we progress.
You can.
If everybody puts the brakes on net zero, which some parties would like us to do, it increases the risk that we will go further into temperature rises and that we will have severe climate events, and we as a district will face a range of challenges. We're going to face them anyway. Has anybody ever done the calculations of what worst case scenario or second worst case scenario is if we start to reach temperature rises of 4%, or have we ever done that as a district, looked at what challenges we face and how much it would cost us in the long term?
Yeah, I think Jonathan is better placed than me to answer that one.
Thank you for the question. So you're absolutely right that whilst we're still hoping that efforts to reduce emissions that stabilise the atmosphere will allow us to stay below that sort of 2-degree limit, the course we're on is for higher than that, and also particularly the next couple of years expecting other climatic reasons why we might see more extreme temperatures and weather events. So it's very much something we're conscious of, and we are creating a new sort of work stream around adaptation and resilience. So there are a number of tools and data sets, some of which are more recent than the ones we used to have for local authorities, which can give you projections at the more local scale of what the typical things might be and what the range might be. So those maximum nighttime temperatures, some temperatures that could affect our residents, for example, with overheating. So we're working with the Local Resilience Forum and an officer employed to work across Suffolk on adaptation to make sure we've got the best available data, look at how we embed this in risk. There's some tools and templates that are around for a number of years that we're looking to use and update with some newer sort of processes to make sure we understand those different scenarios, what we need to be preparing for, and how this might affect our own assets, our services, the communities we serve, but also our economy. Everything from water shortages to too much water. And we've seen that in just about the last couple of weeks, how quickly things can change. So it's something we're very conscious of, and I think across local government, there's a lot of work at the moment where we're having to equally look at the adaptation resilience as much as the reduction in emissions, because those impacts are really starting to take effect.
Is that work likely to become public at some point?
So we'll look to kind of share what actions we're taking, and then understanding the assessments. And one of the things we're looking at is a tool that's been around for a number of years, what's called a local climate impact profile. You effectively look at some recent events and understand the impacts from the community, upon services, upon buildings, but it's to build the whole picture. Quite often we can only focus on one or two impacts, so it gives us a much better understanding of where we might need to address things and where we need to support communities and businesses, for example. So I'd say this is an area of work that we're picking up and trying to accelerate, but also looking how we can get people like research partners and others to support us with that. Because unfortunately a lot of it won't be known until the time, so it is going to be a certain degree of uncertainty, but we can already see we need to start addressing things in the next few years.
I have a question. We are obviously, as an administration, very keen to help form community energy schemes, and I was wondering, and I know that this is quite difficult for groups to progress their plans. Councillor Davies, would you have a view as to what we could do as a council to help foster more of these community energy schemes?
Thank you. I think it generally boils down to funding and resource, and we don't have enough of those at the moment. But I was made aware today of some other funding that was potentially coming down the line, which I think Jonathan could comment on. But it is basically funding and resources. You know, these are complex things for people to do, and people need a certain degree of knowledge, and I think it's quite daunting for people. So they need an awful lot of support in order to progress things, and that takes someone knowledgeable from Babergh or wherever to hold their hands to help them develop their ideas and move them forward. Jonathan, would you like to add the bit about funding?
Thank you, Councillor Davies. So we are expecting under the government's local power plan and GB Energy to find that support in the next couple of months, a bit more around what they'll be doing directly to support community energy. They've obviously set out very large targets for the role of community energy in delivering this huge transition to renewables across the country. And we believe there will be support. We're not sure what kind of form that support will be for local authorities to understand how they partner with community energy organisations. For example, the use of council assets or having direct financial stakes, etc. There's a number of models out there at the moment. There's also quite a lot happening in terms of regulation changes to allow local energy markets. So the government's plan set out a number of things, but we're waiting for the next couple of months to really understand what the detail will be and how we best take advantage of that. There's also possibilities of funding support through things like the National Grid benefit fund that's currently open for applications across Babergh, and any other sort of nationally significant infrastructure projects, for example. So we're trying to look at how we make sure we can connect groups to those sorts of funds that are available. And our climate project officer, Bethany Murrell, is our in-house community energy expert and is keeping in close connection with groups to make sure we're advising of any support that's out there and any tools, and also working with the Greater South East Net Zero Hub, who have been supporting community energy development as well in the region. So we're trying our very best to leverage in as much as possible to support both the nascent groups but also the groups as they expand.
Thank you. I think it would be very useful for councillors to have your thoughts on the local energy plan when it comes out and its impact on our groups. Given that I think in our plan for Babergh we did actually say that we wanted to support the groups and perhaps increase the number of them. And I know how difficult it is for these groups to progress to the next stage. But thank you for that. Now, are there any further questions from councillors?
I would just like to follow up on Jonathan's point. Another way to achieve some of these things might be if, when the larger planning applications come in for, say, 1,000 homes or more, you know, we actively push on the planning side to have community heat networks there. That would be pretty good. I know Taylor Wimpey have done one at Chiltern Woods, but you know, with the amount of development that's coming down the line, that could be something that could actively be considered.
I think that's a very good point. Councillor Derek Davis.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't entirely sure this was the right paper or a later paper to bring this up, but we're all very well aware of the constant delays on the Orwell Bridge and the problems that brings. Now, it's in my role as business development, it's one of the key things that businesses complain about. And obviously with the Sizewell line coming on as well. But the other thing is it has a direct impact, does it not, on climate and change? Because people sitting there in the cars, they don't turn the engines off, we know that. And it's great to have these schemes where you're outside schools and all the parents are told turn your engines off, and it's great for a day. But surely we should be encouraging the Northern Bypass. As a council, we should be saying, you know, we want to push for a Northern Bypass and join in with our partners to make that happen, you know, largely to help with the business economy, but also for the greenhouse gases and the whole climate recovery. It's a question, do you think that's the right thing to do?
Possibly that. I think possibly, given that the council has not got a view on the Orwell Bridge currently, that it's putting the officer in an invidious position to comment on this. I know opinions are mixed on the Orwell Bridge and the Northern Bypass, so I think if we will perhaps park that for another day, because I know it will be the cause of some active debate amongst various members. So let's pass on that one. Are there any other questions from any other members? Councillor McLaren.
No, thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll move to debate, which Councillor Davis's remarks might have been better in debate, but let's see if we have any other contributions from members. Councillor Ward.
Yeah, it's a great report as usual. My concern is following on from what was discussed earlier about the potential change to energy contracts for this building. We have seen at the County Council a new administration, and it's not just energy, but it's things like the whole active and sustainable travel area that we might be facing challenges over, particularly things like EV infrastructure, which is concerning because it's part of our strategy for achieving our aims. But if we don't have a willing partner in the County Council for this, then a lot of that is going to come into question in the months to come. Also, things like the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. Again, it's Suffolk-wide, and we do need to understand exactly where we're heading in terms of that partnership with the County Council. But lastly, I just wanted to say I'm pleased that there's a good coverage of the engagement with our young people, particularly the school's Green Skills Summit, which was held back in October last year. I attended that, and it was very, very good. Very good questions, and I think all the participants there enjoyed that. So I look forward to seeing that being repeated again this year, and keeping up with all the other wider engagement with our young people. Thanks.
Are there any other? Councillor McGraw.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very much taken with looking through the Council Greenhouse Gas report and the graphics in particular. And if you look at the dates, the graph really tells the story on page, give me a moment, 145, graphic 1, progress from 2018 to 2030. And in fact, the baseline was set in 2018, but effectively 2019. And at that point, it looked, if you told us back then that we could actually reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 42% to now, or rather to 24, 25, we'd have said that was impossible. And in fact, the talk at the time was, oh, what's the point, because China is building this and China's building that. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, China might have some coal-powered fire stations. They also have more solar power than any other country in the world, and to a much greater degree than any other country in the world. They're also leaders in the world's wind power. We would have said, and many people did, and continue to believe, that this was impossible. 42% in what is no more than about 6 years. I'm sorry, that's an impressive figure. I look further down the table, I look at the reduction by using HVO, and obviously our eventual plan is to move into electric vehicles naturally, if that's the word, as we get through the vehicles and they become redundant. That was supposed to be impossible. Well, guess what? It wasn't. And I think that's often overlooked. The assumption being made in some quarters that this was an impossible task and we would fail can be proved to be completely wrong. And I think that can't be overstated.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, thanks for that ringing endorsement. I think you're quite right. At the beginning, it seemed to be an insurmountable task, but like any other big task, it gets broken down into chunks, and you look at those smaller chunks to see what you can achieve. And at the moment, we are presented with challenges in the changes in Suffolk County Council, and what will happen with local government reorganisation, I'm not surprised, but there might be a bit of a hiccup. But we just must carry on. We all have to do our bit. And that's what I think we are aiming to do here.
Juncture that although the County Council is undertaking an audit of its environmental programmes, that audit would probably confirm that it's saved £4 million a year because of the programmes that it has undertaken, and that's a fact. Are there any other contributions? Right, in that case, I think we can move to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress.
Chair, I've been locked out of my account, so...
It's not very democratic. We're going to vote by hand. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. That is 8 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Right. We will now move to item 12, BCA/26/6, Building Safety Regulator, BSR Inspection Letter of Outcome. And I will now introduce the report as Cabinet Member for People and Place. I will be assisted in questions by Mark Ems, the Director of Operations, Paul Hughes, the Head of Building Control, and Sharon Bayliss, the Head of Public Realm and Parking Services. The BSR, the Building Safety Regulator, is a new regulator, formally transitioned from the Health and Safety Executive after the Grenfell inquiry. It includes implementation of recommendations from the Grenfell Tower inquiry report, but more specifically in the case of local authorities, its task is to expand oversight of professional competence, building products, and establish regulatory consistency across the sector. So the BSR now inspects all building control bodies, of which local authority building control organisations are part, in a 4-yearly cycle for compliance against the operational standards rules. And you'll find those in, you will have found those in Appendix B of the report. They have the power to request actions to resolve any non-compliances found. the regulator started the inspection of our building control operation in October last year. It's taken rather a long time because they do have staffing issues themselves. Last month they came back, they issued its findings in a letter dated 30th of March, which you'll find in Appendix A, and our building control department was found to be non-compliant in 5 areas. Now, that does sound relatively serious, but these are not particularly difficult or dramatic areas of non-compliance, which can be seen by the fact that the BSR have given us a deadline of 31st of July to respond and to develop an action plan, which is included in Appendix C of this report. We are very fortunate to have a building control operation that is very well regarded in the industry and is in fact award-winning. Several of our personnel have had their own specific awards. So I do wish to ensure councillors that although there is non-compliance, our department actually scores very well against other local authority organisations. So I'm asking you to note the 5 areas of non-compliance and the internal action plan that officers have put in place to address these by the deadline, which they will reach. And we feel that this was a good result for our department. I would now like to take any questions that members might have.
Just a quick one. Right at the beginning of the paper, paragraph 1.1, it talks about higher risk buildings. Are these just tall buildings, or are there other categories of high risk building? Can we have a list of what that's likely to cover, please?
Yes, in fact, the building safety regulator has a wide remit. Obviously, the most, if I can say, critical is the high-rise component, but it does have a responsibility to look at all bodies related to building control. It is meant to be the overall regulator of these areas. But I'm sure if I ask Paul, he will be able to give a much fuller answer.
Yeah, thank you. The legal definition is set out in the HRB regs. Is a high risk building is one that contains at least 2 residential plots or properties, and is at least 7 stories or has a story above 18 metres from ground level. We don't have any in Babergh or in Suffolk for that matter.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I should add that, as you see in 4.4, it outlines systems and controls, staff, and I believe the actual competence of the staff and their qualifications, building control functions, and enforcement and intervention. Councillor Sally Davies.
Do we have any indication of nationwide how this is panning out? Do we have any sort of comparison of us and other councils and what sort of non-compliances they're having? Because my knowledge of our building control service leads me to think that we might compare favourably, but it would be nice if there is a nationwide data on that.
Paul, I believe you could answer that question.
Yep, thank you. No is the answer to, is the simple answer. There's no public library of audit outcomes that the BSR are undertaking. It's something which we flagged up as an issue with our member body at LABC as well. I'm lucky enough to have been privy to other neighbouring local authorities that have been audited by the BSR. East Suffolk have been, they had one non-compliance flagged up. Ipswich are currently going through theirs, and Tendring and Braintree have both had their inspections, and theirs were, they had more. They had a lot more, and more significant ones, as a relatively, they're quite straightforward and easy to comply with.
Any further questions? Councillor Ward.
Presumably, all the actions listed are underway at the moment, and they will complete by the 31st of July.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Just want confirmation of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Councillor Smith.
Thanks. There's a reference to back office systems to record the data. Is that software? Have we got new software?
So what part of the report was that in? Sorry.
In the risk management part, that it's one of the mitigation measures in. Sorry. Page.
Is this in the actual outcome letter from the BSR?
Oh.
Oh, okay. So yeah, yeah. So that's just a general risk in terms of making sure that we've got a back office system that is kept up to date with the requirements of the BSR, and particularly in their KPI requirements, which are quite
onerous.
So it's just
general, not to do with the compliance. Okay.
Sorry?
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Are there any further questions? Okay, are there any questions from members? Councillor McLaren?
I was just thinking it might be useful, this is not a question really, rather a statement. I think overview and scrutiny would occasionally like to review this. I think it's very interesting, and it's something that you can actually get interested in, and not nebulous like a lot of things that we deal with.
Well, I think building control is one of those areas that we are very highly performing in, and perhaps members don't know as much about it as they should. So I'm sure that you will put it on your work plan. Actually, I would like to ask a question, and I should know the answer. Once we have had the inspection, what is the time frequency that the regulator has? Will we be getting another inspection, and when will that be?
So, strictly speaking, the inspection hasn't finished. You know, we've got to go back to them confirming that we've dealt with the improvements that they've asked for. My understanding is that then we'll be put at the back of the queue, so we'll then be in theory in 4 years' time. However, with LGR, we don't really know what's going to happen, because we'll potentially be a new council, a new body that will have to go through the process again. But if everything stays as it is, then it should be in 4 years' time, unless anything crops up in the meantime.
Let's hope that doesn't happen. And of course, this is one of the areas that, of course, is undecided given what may happen as regards LGR. Okay. Are there any other questions? If not, I'll move to debate. No? Any points from members? Okay, well, I will propose the recommendation. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hendry, thank you. Right, can we now move to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Do you want to take your vote verbally, Councillor Davies? Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That is 8 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Right. Now, we will now move to item 8, which is BCA/26/2, Housing Revenue Account HRA Financial Outcome 2025-26. I'll now invite the Cabinet Member for Finance to introduce the report, and he will be assisted by the Director of Finance and Procurement, the Interim Director of Housing, the Director of Housing, the Head of Finance, and the HRA Business Partner. So I'm sure they'll be able to answer all our questions. Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chair. So this is report BCA 26-2, the HRA outturn for 2025-26. The outturn position is provided in Appendix A. The HRA closed the year with a deficit of £2.47 million, which is a further improvement on Q3 and significantly better than the budgeted deficit of £8.353 million. So that represents a favourable variance of just under £5.9 million. Income is slightly lower than budget, but so is expenditure, leading to an operating surplus of £3.94 million, which is £1.18 million better than budget. The main reason for the overall deficit is the revenue contribution to capital of £3.5 million. The table on page 23 of your report shows the movement from budget for individual items, with more detail provided on pages 24 and 25. I won't be going through those in any detail now, but obviously if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. The biggest underspends are in repairs and maintenance, contracted services and employee costs, and the depreciation costs are much better than forecast in the budget. The biggest overspends are in supplies and services. And there are movements in both interest receivable and payable, which largely balance each other out, and the principal change from budget does remain the greatly reduced revenue contribution to capital this year because of the reduced capital spend. Moving on to the capital programme, this is shown in Appendix B. The forecast spend of £12.851 million is a £14.665 million underspend against budget, but this includes £8.5 million of carry forwards from 2024 to 25. The key contributors to this are provided in the commentary column. As before, the largest variances in the capital programme are due to delays in the new build programme, in roofing repairs where contracts have not progressed as quickly as anticipated, and in changing the forward plan for environmental works. Carry forwards totalling £452,000 are listed at the end of the appendix, and the movements in capital financing are shown on page 27, and it shows the reduced revenue contribution to capital, along with reductions in the use of right to buy receipts, and the major repairs reserve and revolver borrowing. The reserves position is shown in Appendix C, and after funding the deficit, the reserves balance is £13.386 million. So I'd like to propose the recommendations listed in Section 3 of the report, and that is it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, we'll now move to questions from members. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. There seem to be a lot of underspends in this report, kitchens and roofs, and a lot of them seem to be to do with contractors. Have we secured contractors now?
Actually, I'll have to pass it over to an expert to answer that.
Yeah, no problem. So we are in the process of securing a new roofing contractor. We did appoint a new contractor last year. That was a company called Breyer, who, despite passing all financial checks and due diligence checks, went into liquidation 2 months after appointment, so never actually started works. By that point, new local government procurement rules had come into effect, so we've had to start the whole procurement piece again. That tender is about to go back out, so that you'll see that on forthcoming decision list very soon. In the meantime, we are using local contractors to help push on and fulfil our obligations, especially around the decent homes side of things.
Thank you. Does that apply to all the contractors across?
It applies to, so kitchens and bathrooms is another work stream that is going out to tender at the minute. Currently we're working on an old contract. You may be aware of the amount of contracts that we put through on the compliance side of the organisation, and we're now just going through that piece now with the assets side of planned works.
Could I ask a follow-up, please? Are there performance clauses in the contracts?
Yeah, there will be, similar to all of our new contracts that we've worked with our internal procurement team and our external procurement consultant. There will be clear KPIs, clear break clauses, no guarantees of works, there's a lot of clauses to safeguard the council.
There's a very large leap in spending on sorting out damp and mould. What does that tell us about our housing stock? Because, you know, we're finally getting to grips with our housing stock. What does it tell us about our housing stock? And what does it tell us about going forward? When we sort out damp and mould, are we sorting it out for good when we go into these properties?
So the large spend or the increase in spend can largely be attributed to the fact that actually in previous years we didn't know what our damp and mould issues were. From carrying out stock condition surveys, actively engaging with residents more, so we're getting a better understanding, and now the spend you're seeing is a more accurate spend of what we will see going forward. What it tells you about our housing stock is it really shows, you know, prior to myself and Jamie, the lack of maintenance, lack of investment, and actually lack of engagement with our residents and listening to them and encouraging them to come forward and speak to us and let us know. So there's lots of different avenues that, that we've improved on to really get that information coming forward. So we are moving quickly into a more proactive approach on damp and mould rather than reactive.
So that means that when we go in, we're trying to put it right so we don't have to come back in further down the line. Yeah.
Yeah, so our approach to all compliance issues, but damp and mould specifically for this is we're not just going in just to try and wash the damp and mould and then walk away from it. We are trying to identify root cause and deal with those issues at the source.
Councillor Hendry, thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to roll back to the underspends. Was the underspend only in relation to that year, or was there any underspend carried forward from the previous year? And if so, are you confident you're going to be able to eliminate the underspend? And are there reasons other than contractors for underspends?
I can pick up on some of that, I think, to start with. Yeah, because when we look at the underspends and how much to carry forward, we do need to look at each item on a case-by-case basis and looking at not just what hasn't been spent, but also what provision we've already made in the current year's budget, which we don't see in this outturn. So if I can just give you some examples here, which I've got. In the current year, the 2026-27 budget, we've got £2 million for roofing for the current year, and also for each of the 2 following years, so that's a total of about £6 million. We've got a total of 1.1 million for kitchens over the 3 years. Environmental improvements, another 1.1 million total over the 3 years. and responsive maintenance, 2.35 million over the next 3 years. And we have had a number of historical carry forwards from year to year, which haven't really represented anything, and we've been making a big effort this year to tidy those up. And some of those carry forwards probably shouldn't have actually been there, as the projects are unlikely to be deliverable in future years, and for various reasons, including capacity to deliver. Just as an example, there's a huge budget provision for environmental improvements, but we only need to carry forward what we need in addition to what is already in the current budget, this year's current budget, which I've already mentioned. So, and again, in responsive maintenance, we're only carrying forward the bit that we need for the sheltered units compartmentalisation, because we've already got other capital provision in this year's budget.
Can I just follow up? Well, it's a query. So if you said that some of the underspend are in relation to projects that are no longer going to be carried out, so where does that money that's no longer needed for that particular category, be it kitchens or roofing, whatever, where does it go to?
Well, it isn't actually money, it's just provision in the capital programme. It's not money that has been used at the moment, either from reserves or borrowed. So it's just an indication of what we are likely to want to use.
Okay.
Add anything to that, please?
If I could just add that we have our planned works over an average of about 30 years. Some are shorter, some are longer. And when we got our Decent Homes review last year, it was just before budgeting period for the 25-26 period. So we deliberately pulled some of those capital works forward to the next 5 years so that we can deal with that Decent Homes standard. We have actually brought the Decent Homes up without having to spend all of the money, but we didn't know at the time which part of that carry forward will be. But all of that will be back into our homes, which all comes from our stock condition survey. So it will continue to be our rolling capital programme throughout the next 30 years.
Councillor Hendry.
Well, my question was going to be around the underspend on the environmental and neighbourhood improvements. I'm still not quite understanding of where that £4 million has come from in that budget. I know it's been carried over from previous years, but how has it got to be that figure? I still don't quite understand why that money is not available for us to spend, which would be great.
I'm not saying you can't spend it, but we didn't have the plans for it, and so we removed it from the budget because it had been historically rolled forward every single year because we weren't spending it.
So we were putting money into the budget for that,
yeah,
but that money was never spent.
It wasn't being spent
during that year, so it's
cleared
been
it
rolled
until
over.
we have plans, and then we can produce a new budget as part of the 30-year business plan.
Okay. And could you...
Sorry, and we have more realistic estimates for capital provision for that particular item for the current year and for the subsequent 2 years.
Okay, and added to that, we've also got the delay in the renewal of the play areas programme. Can anyone explain? I wasn't aware there was a delay to the play areas programme. Can anyone explain? I'm not sure who would deal with that. Can anyone explain what the delay was and give me some reassurance that that's going to be caught up with this year?
Yes, I've been in on some of the meetings. I think the delay was actually because of the change in head of service for housing. So they were waiting for sign-off from a head of service, and it just got delayed as part of that. But now we have our new head of service. The plan is to forge ahead, and there are plans to carry out that work now.
That's great, thank you, Jenny. I would appreciate it if we could arrange outside the meeting for somebody to bring me up to speed with where we are on the playground programme, please.
Are there any further questions? Well, Councillor Davies.
The capital spend is substantially below. There's an underspend, and new builds are not going as fast as expected, which is really disappointing given that we have, like everyone does, a problem with the supply of council housing. Can anyone throw any light on that for me as to why we're just not being able to build as much as we can? So my colleague's just written uplands. So.
This is day 7 for me, so I'm going to have a stab at this. But so, and it's more generic than specific to Babergh Mid Suffolk. But generally, the construction industry is slowing down significantly. Cost increases are making sites less viable, and so contractors are trying to manage that in terms of the cost coming through. We've obviously got a number of specific projects that have experienced their own challenges, which I know are being navigated by the development team, but and we're trying to manage that risk as well to the council so that costs don't increase whilst we can continue to deliver those projects. I can get you a more specific answer after the meeting, but hopefully that gives you an overview.
Further questions? In that case, I have some. So, when we look at the issue with contractors, obviously we have had issues with contractors. Can we be assured that the delays in getting new contractors, ones that we think are of the right standard, have not increased risks for tenants or created further future investment backlogs?
Sorry, yeah, do you mind, rephrasing the question? Sorry.
The paper outlines the issues that we've had with contractors. Have the delays that we have had with securing new contractors increased the risks for our tenants or created backlogs?
So yes, in terms of a backlog, because we haven't, it's clearly in the numbers that we're reporting on, we have not delivered on capital work streams that we should have delivered on. In terms of increasing risk, I think that's reflected in the decent homes figure at the minute. The main issue is around thermal comfort. So when we're looking at kitchens and bathrooms, that's not a major issue in terms of our decent homes position. Roofing is one of the bigger issues, where we need to do some replacement works, which is why that is one of our more critical contracts to get on board. And it's the thermal comfort, which is the insulation, loft insulation and cavity wall insulation, where we have just appointed 2 new contractors that will be working on that. So just, I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Thank you for that. Obviously, some of these changes have had impacts on the HRA business plan, and I think we would like assurance that the business plan, the 30-year business plan, now reflects these changes. The report identifies HRA financial sustainability as a strategic risk. How confident are you that future investment demands remain affordable?
Well, firstly, in terms of the business plan, it will be updated. It hasn't been yet, so that will happen as sort of a regular annual thing. So we will see. I'm not sure when, but at some point soon.
Yeah, it will be updated at budget setting.
Right, budget for next year. Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
what was the second part of that?
Yes, you've asked me now, and now I've forgotten my own questions. How confident are we that future investment demands remain affordable?
Well, my view is that the business plan so far is certainly we've shown it's affordable. We maintain the minimum level of reserves for a few years, but they start to increase at a growing rate after that. And I think that we'll be able to maintain that sort of approach in the business plan in next time we review it and beyond. So I think we've got a strong and stable business plan there.
Officers agree, right? That's good. Are there any further questions from members? Councillor McCarran? Okay. Now, I think we can move to, actually, I need a have I asked for a seconder on this? I have, good. I'm so engrossed in the questions and the answers. So I now open the item up for debate. Members? Councillor Hendry, I see you there.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. Yes, I mean, I think overall this is a really positive report. I've got full confidence in the budget and our ability to continue to invest in our properties as we need to do. I'm glad we've got some reassurance around the contractors and that we can get some of this work carried out in the very near future. And I'd just like to thank Jenny for all her work on the report.
Thank you, Councillor Hendry. Councillor McCraw.
I think early on in the questions we focused, for good reasons, on the underspends. I'm glad to see that that's been dealt with and sorted out. Had it not been, I think we would have had concerns. Reasoned explanations have been given for why these underspends have taken place. And we're not just looking at our own internal housing market, but a wider housing market, as the Director of Housing referred to. This is a very strange place. I worked in the building industry as a supplier in retail, and I've never seen anything like it. And I talked to site managers and people who are supplying bulk goods, and they've never seen anything like it either. We've got explanations, we've got answers to those explanations, and I'm satisfied with the report addressing the underspends. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McCraw. Any further questions? Any other items for debate? Councillor Davies.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a really complicated area. Anything to do with people, you can't apply just standardised things to them. It's all very individual, which is why we're kind of where we are. But I think the plan is positive. But it would be good to see the progress, say, every 3 months on this, so we know that we can see that steady collapse of the underspend, basically, because we are addressing the new kitchens, the new roofs, the environmental improvements, etc. It would be nice to see something more regularly.
Thank you. Noted. Right. Yes, Councillor Ward, please.
Just want to make a quick comment on that. We do have our quarterly reports, so we do see updates in the capital programme from quarter to quarter, so we do have that information.
Thank you. With narrative, not just numbers. I know you love numbers, but could we have a bit of narrative as well?
Okay. We like the words as well as the numbers. Okay. If there are no further contributions from members, I will now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Sally Davis, you don't want to take a vote? Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That is 8 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to item 9, BCA/26/3, General Fund Financial Monitoring 2025-26 outturn. I will now invite the Cabinet Member for Finance to introduce the report. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chair. This is report BCA 26/3, the General Fund outturn for 2025-26. The detailed outturn position is shown in Appendix A of this report. The General Fund position has worsened considerably from Q3, unfortunately. The actuals are a deficit of £1.27 million, which is nearly double the £633,000 we were forecasting in the budget, and so represents an adverse variance of £637,000. Unfortunately, the vacancy management factor had been double counted in the forecasting, leading to an understatement of the deficit position, and this has only recently come to light, although this doesn't explain the entirety of that worsened position. We will be funding all the deficit from the Financial Risk and Resilience Reserve, and the summary revenue outturn table is on page 40, and the details for the net expenditure for each service area on pages 41 to 44. There is an overall adverse variance of £691,000 for the net expenditure on services, and the worsened position, not just from the budget but also for Q3, is primarily in the finance and procurement area, which includes the vacancy management factor, and property development and regeneration service areas. There's a further adverse variance of £112,000 on recharges, capital financing charges and investment income. This is explained in paragraphs 4.4 and 4.5. And that together means that the total net cost of service is showing an adverse variance of £803,000. Funding, however, has improved and is now £167,000 more than budget, mainly due to an improved business rates position, and the main reasons are listed in paragraph 4.6. The earmarked reserves are shown in Appendix B. The reserves end-of-year forecast is now £635,000 higher than budget at just over £9 million, £9.01 million. And this includes all the transfers listed in recommendation 3.2 of the report and explained further in section 4.11. The capital programme is shown in Appendix C. The spend was £9.045 million in the financial year against a budget of £13.954 million. So that's an underspend of just over £4.9 million. The main underspends are listed in paragraph 4.9, and these all relate to projects that will actually complete in the current year. And the funding for the capital programme is shown on page 49. The main funding from capital receipts, most of the funding, as you see, is listed there, but there's a lower than budget amount, so that will incur a lower minimum revenue position provision charge. And there's also funding from capital receipts, section 106, and SIL funding, and grants received from DEFRA to deliver better recycling, and also from the Rural England Prosperity Fund. There are carry forwards in the capital programme totalling £4.85 million listed in Appendix D. We have our prudential indicators as usual in Appendix E. The borrowing remains substantially below the capital financing requirement and also below the authorised limit and operational boundary. So I'd like to propose the recommendations in section 3 of the report, which you'll see listed. And that is it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Can I have a seconder for the report, please? Councillor Sally Davies, thank you. Questions from members, please. Councillor Sally Davies.
Paragraph 4.6, it talks about the business rates decrease in appeal provision, and then there's a whole load of consequences as a result of that. Could somebody just explain that to me in plain English? Because I got really, I just didn't understand that. Starting with what is an appeal provision?
I'll hand that over to the Head of Finance, I think.
Thank you. I'm going to give it a go. I might need some Melissa's support on this, but I'll give it my best go. So, because we are now at the reset of business rates, and we're past a certain date where people can appeal their business rates, the provision has significantly dropped as at year end. So we employ Wilkes Head Eve to reduce those appeals. So they're the value of the business rates. So the provision at year end has come down. As a result of that, our business rate income has gone up. But then as a consequence of that, we then owe more to government, which is causing the levy to go up. So our provision comes down, income goes up, levy goes up. Hopefully that's in very plain English.
Thank you for that very clear explanation. Any further questions from members? Councillor Hendry, followed by Councillor Davis.
I think this is probably another one for the finance team. In paragraphs 4.4 and 4.5, you're explaining the HRA recharges. Again, could we have a bit of a deeper understanding on that, please?
I'll give that one a go, I think. So these are the item 8 recharges between the general fund and HRA. And this is on the internal borrowing and lending between the two. We've got the credit recharge from the HRA, which the HRA owes the general fund for borrowing, and then debit recharge to the HRA, which the general fund owes to the HRA for the interest received on income it holds in the HRA reserves. So looking at the numbers here and why there's some large variances from the actual budget. The HRA was due to make, or did make a payment of £6 million for Public Works Loan Board loan. And instead of making that from their reserves, it was made from internal borrowing in order to protect those HRA reserves. Consequently, that meant higher interest charges to the HRA from the general fund. And so that's why the credit recharge from the HRA is showing that positive variance of £593,000, because that's extra money that the general fund received from the HRA for interest on that borrowing. But conversely, there's now more money in the HRA reserves than anticipated. So consequently, that's earned additional interest, and that interest is due to the HRA from the general fund, so that represents an adverse variance and the debit recharge to the HRA. So it swings and roundabouts, kind of. The HRA owes the general fund more, and the general fund owes the HRA more. Is that okay? Pretty much.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Derek Davis.
My question's about, we see what's been budgeted and we've seen the outturn, but how is the industrial action being planned by the repairs teams, by Unite? How will that impact this budget? Because we won't have made provision for that at the moment, will we? Or will that come out of a reserve? Or will we need to add extra reserves?
That's more of an HRA budget question, I guess, than the general fund, but if we've done that, yeah.
Councillor Ward is right. This is a matter for the HRA, but perhaps the Director of Housing could just put some explanation. Thank you.
See if I can get the tech to work. So there are 4 days planned by the unions for strike. When members of staff don't turn up, the council doesn't have to pay for those. The council will pay a limited amount of money to them individually. So the financial impact is mitigated as a result. It's mainly impact to residents as a result of the capacity to do the work. Our team are already making contingencies to ensure that there's no resident impact on those specific days of failed appointments. What it will mean is that there'll be a slight catch-up with the team, but due to the hard work and diligence of the team over the previous year or so to get back to such a healthy state, we're confident that that will have a limited impact on residents going forward and any backlog.
Can I follow up? So that's really good, and that's a very good answer. But obviously, if Unite are successful in their negotiations, and there'll obviously be extra cost to us, whether that's employee costs or HR funding. How will that be mitigated?
Councillor Ward?
I don't really know, sorry. Yeah.
Well, I think we shall await the result of the negotiation. These are national negotiations, which we will have to abide by, but let's see how they progress. And once we've seen how they progress, then we'll make the necessary adjustments. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Smith, followed by Councillor Sally Davies.
Thanks. We're dipping into various reserves for various things. Obviously, reserves don't go on forever, and I guess the edge of the cliff is in sight. Are we heading? Do we have to worry about how quickly we're heading towards the edge of that cliff?
Yes, we did touch on this, well, more than touched on it, when we looked at this year's budget back in February and the medium-term financial plan. I would imagine that when we come to look at the 27 to 28 budget next year, that medium-term financial plan will probably look a bit worse than the current one. And the Director of Finance is nodding vigorously at me. So, yeah, it is a worry for us. We are burning reserves. And we will, when we come to set next year's budget, do exactly as we've done this year and in past years, take a very rigorous look at all of our costs and, crucially, all of our income sources, because we know that funding is not going to improve much, but we've got a 3-year settlement from government, which has not been exactly favourable for us. We've still got the referendum threshold of 2.99% on council tax. We've had the business rates reset, so we've got to look more and more to ourselves to help to address not just an in-year budget challenge, but looking forward to the future. But of course, we have local government reorganisation, which is going to alter that picture quite considerably beyond 2028.
Any further questions? Councillor Sally Davies.
Sorry, I haven't got the document in front of me, so I can't reference where this is, but at some point we agreed an increase in a waste contract of £219,000. Can I ask why we agreed that? Why was that necessary? I can't tell you where that is.
The Director of Operations can...
Hello, yes, that was in connection to the pay increase for staff, which was in year, but it's funded from some of the additional money that we'd had, and then it was built into this year's budget.
Right, oh yeah, thank you. I remember that now, yeah.
I have a question, Councillor Ward. Are you comfortable with all the prudential indicators in Appendix 4 of this report? Appendix E, rather, sorry.
See that our borrowing is lower than the capital financing requirement. If I just turn to Appendix E, there is one area actually which a little bit of concern. Hold on, let me just get Appendix E up in front of me. So yes, in terms of the debt, the borrowing and the capital financing requirement, and also sitting within the authorised limit and the operational boundary, happy with that. In the proportion of financing costs to net revenue stream, we are stable within the HRA, around the 15-16%, and actually slightly dropping in the coming years. I think there's concern, I have some concern that the proportion of net revenue stream in the general fund is increasing. We've seen an increase from 2024 to 25 through 25-26, and we're now at 30% for the current year and possibly 32% in the year beyond. That's going to put pressure again on our budget setting, I think, in terms of, as I've said earlier, how we can be very rigorous on our cost cutting and service income.
I'm sure you've got something to add to that. Thank you.
And Councillor Waters picked up on the indicator that I am concerned about as well, especially with the volatility of interest rates at the moment. Obviously, we've built in 4% for interest rates for 26-27, but that is the one that stands out to me, is our financing costs are quite disproportionate to our net revenue stream. So, yeah, that's the one that I would be keeping an eye on, I think is fair to say.
Yes, these are difficult and challenging times, but when aren't they? I would like to ask a question about 197,000 for temporary accommodation, which of course is very concerning, given, and I know that this is a situation which is happening all over the country. I recall that we had made a decision that we would buy houses so that we wouldn't have to put our homeless residents into bed and breakfast. Could I just ask what progress we've made in securing those houses, and also what our plans will be? I know that we try and prevent homelessness as much as possible, but could we have some narrative on how we feel that this is going?
There we go. We've got the temporary accommodation project at the moment. We've acquired 8 units within Babergh with the use of community developments and local authority housing fund money. Of those 8 units, 2 of them are currently occupied, and the other 6 are due to be occupied by the end of the month. So that's gone really, really well. In terms of the temporary accommodation, we have had to do some slight adjustments in terms of our income, in terms of housing benefit. So that's been adjusted, and that is some of the costs that we're seeing in here. In terms of what we're doing to mitigate it, is that we are obviously trying to look at those issues around preventing homelessness. At the moment, we're around 69%, 70% of our residents are prevented from being homeless. We've got a small proportion of people that end up in temporary accommodation, but we can still do better. What we've noticed is that we've got an increased cohort of very complex singles who are quite chaotic and needed additional support before they get to be in general needs accommodation. So we are trying to look at how we support those people, and we're looking at different options in terms of looking at our pathways, in terms of how people are moved through temporary accommodation in a much quicker fashion as well, because you want it to be a short, sharp stay in TA, not a long-term stay. So we are looking at different things, and we are looking at how we use our housing register as well to mitigate that.
Thank you. No, are there any? Councillor McLaren? No? Okay. So I shall open this for debate. Any members want to make a contribution? It looks like no. Okay. In that being the case, I will now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Sally Davies, thank you. Thank you, Chair. There's 8 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. I have been asked, given that it is just gone 5:30, if we could take a 5-minute break. Let's, we will do that, and the next item on the agenda will be the performance report. Thank you, councillors. We shall now resume. Item 10, BCA 26/4, Quarter 4, 2025-26 Babergh Performance Report. I will now invite the Cabinet Member for Performance and Resilience to introduce the report. Councillor McCraw.
Thank you, Chair. This might be a slightly more complicated presentation than previously because we now have the addition of the Council Housing Assurance Report, which has become a regular feature, and it's becoming more and more important. So this quarterly performance report is for January 26 to March 26. So we're covering 3 months. I would stress this, that it is by nature retrospective. Things will have moved on since the report was originally, when I originally saw it. And I've got multiple notes in different places, so I'm doing multiple documents, so please bear with me. And I've just lost one of them. Okay, there we go. There was to be an end-of-year impact report. It's not included with this because it's being reviewed by the SLT and with other similar documents. I shall take my own portfolio area in terms of customer service to start with, and then I'll invite other Cabinet members to highlight any areas of their service areas and portfolios as they wish. We will then retain the housing report as a separate item at the end, if that's okay with members and the public.
Yes, thank you, that's fine.
Well, fine, I just didn't want to try and run your meeting. So,
please carry on.
Okay, so customer service. Customer service demand rose in Quarter 4 and it impacted our call answering performance with no question about it. We have seen a big increase in call answering, 210 as against 105 second target. That's a lot of an increase. And abandoned call rates also rose. And it's really, really unfortunate because we've been achieving our target levels for some time. The explanation is really quite simply, we had 5 retirements and people leaving the service all at the same time. And although recruitment has already been undertaken and is underway, it takes about 3 months to properly bring somebody in the customer service team, the call centre, up to speed. So there was the usual thing, council tax billing, rent notification letters, which we get at this time of year, housing-related content, particularly regarding repairs, and we have been taking on a greater degree of support for the better recycling programme, which obviously will now increasingly become part of our waste service, customer service provision. And I do expect that to have an impact in the next quarter's performance as simpler or better recycling comes into operation, has come into operation. But we're confident that we can continue to maintain service, and it's important to note customer service satisfaction has remained stable at around 85% throughout the period, which is quite impressive. Complaints are up from the last 2 quarters, but they're still lower than this time last year. I do have some other notes which are in another place. So I'm just going to point out some minor indicators because I'm not wanting to preempt other Cabinet members, but these are some highlights that were brought to my attention. I think they're reasonable. Planning applications are performing very well with very few overturns, and decisions are being made on time. We have 41 neighbourhood plans either adopted or in preparation, and there are 2 examiner reports published this quarter. I'm going to refer briefly to waste side curb collection rates because before better recycling, we're operating at 99.96% of proper collection rates, okay? That's the target, that's achievable, and we're only in week 1 of better recycling. We've seen a small increase in the number of garden waste subscribers. And just one point I noted is that we've received an average of 548 calls per day during the last quarter. There are an average additional 2,781 daily visits just to the Babergh website. But obviously I've covered the matters. I'll now turn the report over to individual members if they want to focus on anything from their own service area invite other members to contribute at will.
Thank you, Councillor McGraw. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. I'm not going to dwell too much on the performance indicators in this report, as we do have the housing assurance report to follow, and I'm sure members will have lots of questions on that. I just wanted to touch on mainly the work of Housing Solutions. You can see from these figures on here don't really tell the full story. We are struggling with the amount of households we currently have in temporary accommodation. I think that's a national trend, not just for us. But I would like to highlight the good work that Housing Solutions are doing in prevention. We're consistently coming in above the national average on how many preventions we manage to achieve. We're always going to struggle. We need more housing. We're working on that, especially around the temporary accommodation side. But just a big thank you to AMO and the Housing Solution teams for the work they're doing on that. You can also see on here we've got some red categories with the voids. We are doing our best to get the void relet times improved. But as Cabinet members are probably aware, we did make some decisions around the condition of our homes when we move in, because that also has an effect on our tenant satisfaction scores. And also with the Decent Homes standard and our wish to improve our performance on that, we are taking the opportunity when properties become void to really get all of that work done to prevent more work being done in the future. So I'd just like to reassure Cabinet members that the void repair time is down to the work that we're carrying out and the decisions we've made. Having said that, with the new void contractors, I think we really are improving on that, and we should begin to see better void times coming down.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. I think that's very encouraging. Do any other members want to comment on their portfolio? I take... Councillor Derek Davis.
I'll just touch very quickly on my particular portfolio. I've been to a couple of conferences or things recently, mainly regarding tourism and culture. And once again, Suffolk in general and Babergh in particular does very well. It comes out really high. One of the interesting figures that I found at the Suffolk Coast Forum was that more people visit Suffolk than they do Cornwall or Devon. So we have the business. However, both Cornwall and Devon, obviously probably due to the distance, have more overnight stays. Therefore, the spend is higher in both those areas. That said, we still look to do a lot of promotion work, to promote, especially for Babergh. And to that end, our team have done a fantastic wine trail. So if you like a glass of wine and you like looking at vineyards and you like a nice bit of cake, then I suggest you start looking. That'll be coming out in full. All the details will be coming out very shortly on that. But again, it's a practical, it's a tangible way of showing that we're trying to our very best to keep the economy in Babergh thriving.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I'm sure we all look forward to receiving that, and I'm sure we will all partake of the tour. Right, Councillor Smith.
Thanks. Yes, just briefly, I'd like to touch on the work of the community safety team with the ASB case reviews continuing to be responded to 100% within the statutory timeframe. And I'd add that I met our latest recruit last week, who's the dedicated ASB officer. I'm sure he'll be a boon to the team and the work they do.
Thank you. Councillor Sally Davies.
Councillor McCraw has covered our performance indicators in planning, but I'm very interested that we had 6 compliments, it says, which I'm blown away by that. Is it possible for me to see those 6 compliments? Good. Thank you very much.
councillors. I think the Q1 next performance report will be a very enlightening when it comes to better recycling. So I think I will hold fire until then. Councillor Hendry, would you now like to introduce...
I wonder, Chair, would this be a good point to take questions on the basic report before we approach that subject? That's just a suggestion. Your meeting.
No. I'm glad you're remembering that. Councillor Sally Davies.
I notice on page 64, there might not be anybody here who can answer this, but days sickness, the average day's sickness over the year is 10 days, which seems to me high. And what worries me about that is I know the ONS 2025 number for overall, including public and private sector, absence days, the average was 4.4 days, and I know public sector, for various reasons, has higher absence rates. But 10 days does seem going towards the high. What worries me is that because we haven't been recruiting into certain posts and because we have had to make cuts, are we overdoing it, and does that absence rate indicate that our staff may be getting too stressed or overwhelmed?
That is an interesting question. Perhaps one of the senior officers would like to comment on that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to pick that up. But although I'll just cover it briefly, but I'm very happy to have a conversation with you outside. Councillor Saw did receive a briefing from our head of HR recently. We do that quarterly. It was her first one a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago perhaps, where we go through the reasons for absence, whether it's musculoskeletal or increase in flu or colds or stress and that kind of thing, and how we compare to others. And I'm not as concerned as I think you've expressed by the numbers there. It is something that we're keeping a close eye on. We've got on our risk register concerns around staff and impact of LGR, impact of savings. We do an awful lot of work and invest heavily in supporting staff well-being, lots of lunch and learn sessions on how to address stress and tension and manage workload and manage time and things like that. So it's something that we're very conscious of. I'm not unduly concerned, but I'm very happy to have a conversation outside where I don't have all the data and the different information in front of me right now, but very happy to take some time to run through that with you if you'd like.
Thank you. Councillor McCraw.
Could I just add that on that matter, that is the cumulative report, and if you look at the line above, the actual for the quarter is a great deal lower than that, at 0.78 per
Yeah, but the cumulative...
It's the cumulative. No, I get that, but you'll also see it rises and falls throughout each quarter. It changes. So I would also confirm, just having looked at this piece of data over many years, and having worked in an industry which also looks at these things very closely, staff intensive, I wouldn't be greatly concerned either.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Yeah, page 70, we've got the town centre vacancy rates there, which are gratifyingly stable despite popular myth. What I would like to see is the footfall in the town centres listed here as well, because I think that will help to give a more rounded picture of the fact that our two towns are holding up and doing quite well.
Yes, well, we do have that data, so I think we should add that in. Councillor McCraw.
Just to say that footfall figures are very subjective. I've yet to see a source of footfall that is entirely solid, but there you go. Yes, we've got what we've got, we can share.
We do have the data packs
yes.
that are issued on a regular basis that has
yes.
footfall data in.
Well, in actual fact, I think that the footfall figures are actually very interesting and do show a trend of people, of dwell time in the town centres. Now, it is actually calculated by people's mobile phones, and there may well be certain sections of our population that do not have a mobile phone. However, I would suggest that because we have been tracking this for years now, that it is quite a good measure, and we should add it in there, particularly as it is such a source of comment by various people on Facebook. So the more that we can show hard metrics, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Right,
Thank you, Councillor Saul. I'm very pleased to introduce this housing assurance report. As members will be aware, the Council's responsibilities as a social landlord extend far beyond simply managing homes. Our role is to ensure that residents live in safe, decent and well-maintained homes, that services are responsive to their needs, and that we have the appropriate governance, assurance and oversight arrangements in place to meet our regulatory obligations. This report provides members with an opportunity to step back and consider not only our current performance, but also the strength of the evidence and assurance that sits behind it. As a Cabinet, we have a responsibility to understand where we are performing well, where improvement is required, and whether we can be confident that the information we receive accurately reflects our experience of our tenants. I'm encouraged by the progress that's been made across a number of areas, particularly the work underway to strengthen compliance assurance, improve the quality of our housing data, and develop a clearer understanding of the condition of our homes. However, I do not think any of us would suggest that the journey is complete. Like many landlords across the sector, we continue to face challenges around asset investment, service performance, customer expectations, and maintaining the highest standards of safety and compliance. What is important is that we have a clear understanding of those challenges, robust plans in place to address them, and a culture that is open about areas requiring further improvement. As members consider this report today, I would encourage us to focus not only on the performance being reported, but also on the assurance that supports it, the risks that remain, and most importantly, the outcomes being delivered for the residents. I'd just like to highlight a few areas where I think praise is well deserved. Certainly around the repairs team, we've had 100% of emergency repairs completed on time. Other repairs continuously increasing and over target. Our compliance rate remains high, and those standards are being maintained. We continue to see a decrease in our non-decent homes, and I'm assured that that is running to schedule. So a big thank you to the teams there, and I'd like to thank all officers for the work that's gone in to preparing the report, and I welcome members' comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. It certainly is a very interesting report, and one that I think councillors all appreciate. Could I now ask councillors for their questions?
Thank you. You touched on this in your introduction. How can we be certain that service improvements are experienced by our tenants and not just reflected in our internal performance reports?
I think we do have assurance that I think the tenant satisfaction measures give some assurance, as they are surveys that are completed by the household, especially around the repairs. All tenants, once they've had a repair, get a text opportunity to complete a survey. We're working on other ways of being able to roll those surveys out to people to make sure we're getting you know, a good percentage of survey feedback. We also have audits being done on some of the compliance work. I believe that's 10% of some of our checks are audited, and that can increase if we don't feel that we're fully happy with what we're doing. We can increase those check numbers. I'll just pass that over to Richard and Jane to just maybe give a bit more detail.
Yes, so certainly on the compliance side, we do employ a company called GCS Compliance, and they will carry out 10% audits on our gas installations and our electrical installations. If we find consistent errors, there are occasional failings. Last month there was one failing, which actually was a requirement for a new boiler to be installed, which was done. But if we see consistent failings, whether it be from an engineer, they're typically we ask for them to be removed from contract, or if we see the same failings consistently, we then extend our sample rate to 20%, 30% until we see our contractor bringing failings into line, and then we reduce it back down in line with policy.
I'd just like to add to that. I think one of the biggest indicators of our improvement is that I think myself, a lot of the contractors, a lot of the housing staff, we actually get people come up and tell us how the repair system has improved. I think that goes across the board for most of the councillors. And I think that's the biggest indicator that we can see the outcome for our residents, is that they're generally more happy. So I think that's a real...
Absolutely. Councillor Smith, yes, please.
You said that all tenants are offered the opportunity to feed back after repairs. Do you have a ballpark figure for how many that do?
I believe Jane did tell me the percentages yesterday, but is it 40%? Which is great, and especially as it's so positive, because generally people are more inclined to leave feedback if they're unhappy. So I think that shows a really good indicator of how well we're actually doing with the repairs. So yeah.
The feedback that we get after every repair, I mean, we're up into 90% plus, aren't we, most of the time. We're getting very, very good feedback. And everybody gets that text straight after a repair. They get that text, and you know, 40%. It's not. We would like more, but at least we're getting that, and that's something that we didn't get before.
Thank you, Councillor McCraw. I think you had a question.
Yes, I'd just say 40% is a pretty good response rate for a survey. You do that, you're very well. But also, I look at the general satisfaction levels in the report and the earlier report. I'm almost obliged by my portfolio to ask questions about data quality. Are we confident that our data is correct and properly measured on a consistent basis? And then, of course, risk, both the landlord risks as us and the risks to our residents. I just wondered if those two, if we're confident in what we're doing, because obviously we continually review our risk register. Is this on the radar?
Happy to take that one, Chair. So in terms of data accuracy, as Richard mentioned earlier on, one of the key areas is around our compliance. So we use a third-party accredited company to give us assurance that the quality of the information we hold, especially on those critical areas of compliance, are giving us the assurance of the information that we have. I'm currently reading through a scope of our internal audit, which will include our data, which is another form of assurance that we get across all of our data suites. So I can give members assurance that we are confident that the accuracy of the information that we provide to members, to our tenants, and to our management colleagues. The second part of your question, I think, was risk. We have on day 7, I can assure you, we have a robust and very extensive risk management profile that's managed on a regular basis through our system called Pentana. And it's probably one of the most mature and developed systems I've seen across local authorities that I've worked with. So that gives me much greater assurance. clearly we need to ensure that that's embedded within our culture on a regular basis, that those risks are updated, but I can give members all that assurance.
Glad to hear it. And bear in mind, this is somebody who's come from outside this organisation and has seen our systems and has said they seem good.
Well, Councillor Helen Davies.
Thank you. On page 74, there's a little bit about dangerous structure incidents in Babergh. Reassuringly, it's dropped from 10 down till 3, but exactly what's a dangerous structure incident, and is it something we should have spotted a bit earlier?
I believe that's in the, is that in the performance report? It's not the house insurance report.
Yeah, it is.
That's fine, I'll let Councillor
I have
McCall.
nothing to add, to be honest with you. I have no particular knowledge of this. Sorry, I just can't add. Maybe an officer can. Here we go. Thank you, Tom.
I believe, could you just refer me to the page number, just so I can check?
I think that is building control. We've changed it around.
Yes, that relates to where building control are involved. So, for example, if a car hits into a building and creates a dangerous structure, or there's a fire and that creates a dangerous structure, then our building control team will go out and check and shore up, and then it will be for the homeowner to undertake repairs and such like. But dangerous structures is something that we are responsible for, normally associated with fire or vehicle strikes.
Oh, thank you. I misread it. I was thinking of it as sort of major flaws with some of our housing stock.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, I think we can move to debate if there are no further questions. Oh, sorry, Councillor McLaren, I do apologise. Did you? Okay.
I should have mentioned, Chair, the report is for noting, so I don't know if a vote's required.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I think it's such an interesting report that perhaps we should debate it. Okay. Are there any further questions about the housing assurance report? No? I think one of the things that I would like to ask is there was reference made to other feedback measures that might be put into this to get an even clearer view on tenant satisfaction. Would you be able to give us any more detail on that?
I think we had an initial discussion around this the other day, but I think given that we've now got we've got much better understanding of our tenants with all the data we've got from the Get to Know You project, we are aware that some of our tenants need to be communicated with in other ways, and I think we need to look at that as a follow-up to the good work we're doing on getting those responses in, is maybe to see the people that will not respond to a text message. We're aware now of the people that we need to contact in different ways. So I think maybe we can have discussion about how we're going to reach those people and make sure we get their feedback. So.
Yes. Because I believe that there are quite high levels of digital exclusion amongst our tenant base.
There are. It is. We obviously have quite a lot of older tenants. That may be something to do with it, but we do have quite a large number of digitally excluded tenants. I don't know whether that necessarily means text messages. Some of those may still be able to have text messages, but I think part of the beauty of the Getting to Know You project is that we know so much more now about our tenants and how we need to communicate with them, and that is going to be a follow-up piece where that data can be used across all the service areas, and we can really make a big difference to the way we communicate with our tenants. So.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Sally Davies.
I just wanted to go back. This really straddles both the performance report and this assurance. And going back to the question about we've got these figures, but does it transfer in practice? I noticed that the stage 1 complaints in the performance report, I missed all the top ones are housing. And yet we look like we've hit the targets. So is there any explanation as to why they're still top of the complaint list?
Well, I think a lot of that is to do with, obviously, we have a large number of tenants. That's going to be one of our the main reasons people phone in. That most, I would imagine quite a lot of the customer service calls are housing related. I'm not sure who to pass that over to. I don't know who would be the right person. Councillor McCaw.
Well, I can just say historically that's been the case for a very long time, and it always is. I don't think Claire would disagree with me or any other officer. It is the norm, simply because, as you say, we have a large housing stock, and it is a hot item.
Yes, I can just confirm that it is the quantity of opportunities for a complaint to arise that is why housing will always be at the top of the list, as opposed to it performing worse than other service areas.
Director of Housing like to add anything to that on his 7th day?
Well, actually, Claire did a great job, but I think we shouldn't underestimate just the interactions that we have through housing and repairs are much more significant and meaningful to individuals on a day-to-day basis. I think the key for me is, whilst we have complaints, if you look at some of the stats around the satisfaction with complaints, that demonstrates that all feedback is received in a positive way, and wherever possible we can turn a complaint into a positive for a resident. So there will always be opportunities for our residents to give that feedback, and we would positively encourage it. I think I would be more concerned if the numbers of satisfaction were lower as a result of that.
It just occurred to me, Chair, that on the performance report, and I don't think we've asked a question about this because it's an important matter, damp and mould, and our budget has increased rather largely. Obviously, that might just be this particular year to last year, it's a comparison, but it's a lot of money, and also it's a very high profile item, and I think that's an area where you do see complaints, obviously less so in the summer, particularly in the winter, and I just wondered if officers can throw any light onto our approach and whether we should be worried about that.
I believe we did actually cover that earlier in the meeting, but I'm more than happy for officers to explain. As we said, we've got a lot more data now with all our stock surveys. We have a huge amount of data on our homes, and that has the issues we have with damp and mould should have been picked up at that survey stage. So I think that's probably the explanation for the increase in the cost. I will pass you over to Richard Spencer to explain.
I mean, that is the increase. That is, as Councillor Entry said, we now have a much better understanding of our stock. We're getting more. All of our contractors, the repairs team, are actively reporting any sites of damp and mould into the team, and we're having more interactions or more information supplied to residents to encourage them to come forward, because there are some residents that actually don't want to come forward. I know we experienced it for a while in the repairs team, where actually residents had given up reporting repairs, and now we are seeing, because of that improvement, we're seeing they're much more encouraged to come forward and report issues. So.
Councillors, if there are no further questions, I will ask the governance.
We still need a seconder.
Oh yes, we do need a seconder for this report. Councillor Ward, thank you. I will now ask the governance officer to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Sally Davis, let me take the vote verbally. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That is 8 votes for, that's unanimous.
Thank you. Right. We will now move to the final item on the agenda, which is item 13, BCA/26/7, Babergh and Mid-Suffolk District Council's Joint Air Quality Strategy. I will now invite the Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Biodiversity and Nature Recovery to introduce the report. Councillor Helen Davies.
Thank you, Chair. The Babergh and Mid-Suffolk Joint Air Quality Strategy sets out our shared approach to protecting and improving air quality across our districts. Air quality is something that affects every resident in our communities. While our districts are largely rural and generally enjoy good air quality, we know that pollution, particularly from road traffic, still poses risks, especially in our towns and along key routes such as the A12 and A14. We also recognise that poor air quality has real consequences for people's health, contributing to conditions such as heart disease and respiratory illness, and disproportionately affecting the most vulnerable in our communities. The evidence presented in this report shows that air pollution levels are currently compliant with national objectives, and in Sudbury we've seen measurable improvements as a result of targeted action through better traffic management. However, the strategy is clear that maintaining and improving air quality requires continued focus and proactive work. The strategy identifies 4 key priority areas for action: transport, reducing emissions from vehicles and promoting cleaner travel; policy and planning, ensuring air quality is embedded into our decisions; 3, public awareness, helping residents understand and improve air quality; 4, monitoring, strengthening our data collection and evidence. Much of our local air pollution comes from how we travel, and therefore the solution lies in supporting greener, healthier alternatives such as walking, cycling, public transport and low emission vehicles. This strategy also recognises that we cannot do this alone. Improving air quality requires partnership working with Suffolk County Council, health partners, businesses and our communities, and alignment with wider priorities such as climate change and sustainable transport. In summary, this is a forward-looking and preventative strategy. It builds on the progress we've made and ensures we remain compliant with national standards.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillors, can I have a seconder for this report, please? Councillor McCraw, thank you. Now, questions from members. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Thanks for this excellent report. I'm obviously very pleased about Cross Street being revoked, although there are still concerns there for residents. I note we're still monitoring nitrous dioxide, but we're not monitoring fine particulate matter across the district. And you mentioned partnership working. Is there some scope for citizen science to do monitoring of particulate matter?
I guess there's scope. I actually did ask once if I could monitor the quality of the air at a junction in Sproughton by the Wild Man, which just regularly gets absolutely rammed with loads of vehicles idling for hours, it seems, whenever there's a problem on the A14. Now, I was told that you needed particular equipment to do this, and if you didn't have that particular equipment, your numbers weren't considered acceptable. So I don't think it's entirely straightforward and will need a little bit of looking at, but it's certainly a good idea, as that would be kind of free resource in terms of getting readings from areas that, you know, residents may feel are problematic. I'll make a note.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Sally Davies.
I haven't got it in front of me, so I can't remember whether this is in the report or not. But looking at the way that you mentioned planning has to come into this, is the policy of developing along the A12 corridor, is that a sustainable thing that we should still be doing given air quality concerns?
Good point. I would never recommend you have homes opening directly onto the A12. That would be disastrous. But my understanding is that the level of the emissions actually drops quite sharply and quite quickly the further you go away from a road. I think James would have a bit more to add on that. But I do think we in general need to be careful about where we're developing, and air quality should be inbuilt into things like site assessments, for example, and when you're evaluating planning applications, to make certain that they are not near an area where the air quality is less than ideal. I don't know if James has anything to add.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Well, can I just hear from you?
You've been very patient, James. I don't want you to miss your opportunity.
Yes.
Here we are. You're absolutely right. Pollution levels do fall off very quickly, rapidly, with distance from a roadside. I think the key to development along the A12 and A14 is there's two things there. One, obviously the onus is on the developer to prove that their development is not going to cause a problem. So whenever they propose something, it will come with an environmental impact assessment in terms of air quality, which we will thoroughly review to make sure that the health objectives are not going to be breached. And the second thing is obviously in terms of the local plan, in talking to Robert Hobbs, Head of Strategic Planning, he's actually proposing some further work around that area as part of the local plan project. So there will be, we're looking at whether we're going to do some further monitoring, employ consultants to do that. So that work should come forward, but it will be through the local plan process rather than this strategy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions? I have one question, and it relates to air quality and public health. We have in Suffolk quite a high level of childhood asthma. It's the most common long-term condition amongst our children, and I'd be interested in knowing how we address this with the county council, because obviously this is a big issue around our schools in towns. But I also recognise that monitoring air quality is quite a time-intensive and expensive action. So I wondered if what our partnership working was with the county council on that issue.
I don't know the answer to that question in detail, so I will hand it over to James.
Thank you. We work very closely with, well, not just county council, but also the other Suffolk district and borough councils as well. A number of approaches. Firstly, public health information programs. It's Clean Air Day next week, next Thursday. We are focusing heavily on a project around public health. So that's associated with the hospitals. We run many campaigns alongside them. They're looking specifically at the issue with asthma, and a lot of that is actually related to indoor air quality. People using spray deodorants, all sorts of emissions from wood-burning stoves. So we're trying to address that through campaigns as well on indoor air quality. It's probably much more of a problem than actual in our area than external air quality from traffic emissions. Everybody just looks straight out the window, oh, there's a road nearby. Actually what you're doing in your own home is often much more problematic. Smoking is the other one. So yeah, we're working very closely with the County Council on a number of projects, which are some of those listed in the action plan as part of the strategy.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren, have you got any questions? Okay. I can now open this for debate if any member wishes to make a contribution. Councillor Derek Davis, Councillor Ward.
Yeah, I obviously peaked too earlier when I mentioned the northern bypass, but I think again, okay. But the air quality report it's obviously really good. But again, I don't think we should miss an opportunity to do everything we can to improve air quality throughout the district, and that could bring peripheral places like the Orwell Bridge. It has a massive effect on the Shotley Peninsula and other villages nearby. Whenever the bridge is closed, it goes through the town, it causes absolute mayhem. And we talk about public health, obviously the health and well-being, the mental health stresses that causes, the effect on the business economy is well known, but surely the air quality we know is highly affected because people don't switch their engines off when they're waiting. And they'll chug through and there's higher emissions. Yes, in a perfect world, more people would cycle. We need to do better on cycling routes, especially along the peninsula. We know that. But also I think that as a council, I think we should encourage the northern bypass, and I think we should lobby for it, and we should actually be vocal in our support for that, for those three reasons: air quality, health, and the economy.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. That very powerful summation there. Councillor Wood.
Paragraph 4.6, talking about the action plan, specific actions, it says that these actions include continued collaboration with the County Council. I think we will need to understand sooner rather than later if and how that collaboration will continue, given the new administration's desire to review all of its net zero initiatives. We don't know whether the County Council will drop or radically alter its climate emergency plan, its air quality strategy and action plan, and also its local transport plan. But we do need to understand where it sits on all of these as soon as possible, I think, because if some of our worst fears are realised, we could find that collaboration dwindling to virtually nothing.
Indeed, I do have a meeting with the leader of Suffolk County Council, and I'm sure this will be one of a number of issues that I will discuss with him, and I'm sure our officers in all of the districts in the county are eager to get some clarification on County Council policy as well. I should just say that although we talk about air quality in our towns, there are certain villages in our district which are blighted by heavy traffic. Their lands, their construction was done many centuries ago, and their residents are suffering greatly from the pollution from these heavy lorries. Unfortunately, it is quite difficult to get, I think it was 2 years ago that the county did its last piece of work on lorry routes, and I think it would be quite instructive to actually monitor the air quality in some of these villages, because I think we would be shocked by the results. I think we should now, if there are no more contributions, I think we could now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Sally Davis, may I take your vote verbally? Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That is 8 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you very much, councillors, for your contributions and questions today. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 16th of July at 4:15, and it will be in the Britain room, not the chamber. Yes, I know it's... that's right, isn't it? Councillors look confused. Yeah, it says 4:15. That's correct, isn't it? Ah, yes. This is a Thursday because of the LGA conference on the procedure.